The Orlando Magic stand pat at the trade deadline, and it is a huge mistake. Just look at Thursday's game. What comes next today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 7th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, the Orlando Magic decide to stand pat at the trade deadline. Why that could be a terrible mistake. And what comes next for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. No matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload, we truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter, the one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. This trade deadline felt like a big one. Not only are the Magic, for the first time in 3-4 years, not meeting expectations or not exceeding expectations, but with Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner now under long-term contracts, with Paolo Banchero set to sign a max extension this summer, the Orlando Magic's ability to spend, the Orlando Magic's ability to add salary is winding down. The rookie contract era is over. And it becomes much more difficult to spend and add players, even with the cap expected to go up in the coming years. This trade deadline and this offseason, and potentially next year's trade deadline, are the last opportunities the Magic have to improve their roster. And as we looked at the Magic season and looked at this Magic roster, we saw undeniable and clear weaknesses, clear things the Magic had to correct, had to fix, had to fill in, issues they needed to address if they were to take the next step from being merely a playoff team to being an Eastern Conference contender. That's the goal. Now, obviously, like Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner's development is a big piece of this. But when we look at this roster, we see clear and abundant flaws. This Magic team needs more. They need more offense. They are the second worst offense in the league. They are the worst three-point shooting team this league has seen in more than a decade. The Orlando Magic haven't been out of the bottom 10 in offensive rating in 12 years. And maybe this would have been the year if the Magic had been healthy all season, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to believe that. The Magic don't have the answers internally. And so this trade deadline, with the opportunity, with the potential that it has, with the assets the Magic have, felt like the time to begin addressing these needs seriously. It felt like it was the time. And yet, the Magic stood still. For the second straight year, the Magic did not make a deal at the trade deadline. They did not look to add to this roster. They could not find the deal that checked all their boxes. There may not ever be a deal that checks all their boxes. And so the Orlando Magic opted once again to bet on continuity, to bet on their health, fixing some of these problems, getting them into the playoffs, giving them the opportunity to make that final evaluation before they take that next step. Maybe that is the right call. I'm not going to pretend that it isn't possible. That maybe adding back Jalen Suggs sets this team's defense right, powers the offense up a little bit more, and shows us that, yes, this team would have been the 4 or the 5 seed if not for these injuries. is enough to get them to 45 wins over the last 29 games of the season now, and gets them that 6th seed to avoid the play-in. The promise, though, was continuity only works when the team is winning, when the team is successful year over year. That's not the case. The Magic aren't having a good season. We are sitting here debating the same issues that we knew were issues in May when the Magic lost to the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Magic were good enough then to partially overcome their poor shooting, partially overcome their creation issues, but they couldn't. And while it may have been a fair bet to say the team will naturally get better because they are young, and then you add a shooter in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, that is not how things have worked out. And so, betting that Jalen Suggs returning, betting that it's just injuries is a half answer. If it is even a half answer. Because while I do believe this Magic team, when healthy, is better than they were last year, they are still not closer to who they want to be, to what they want to be. They need shooting. They need it desperately. They need players who want the ball in their hands, who are unafraid to score, who can take the reins when Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner struggle, who, when players get hurt, can fill in and step up. The Magic right now have too much of one type of player. Ace defenders who are sketchy shooters. The Magic have too much of those supporting type players. They need someone who isn't afraid to put the ball in the hoop. They need a gunner. They need an irrational confidence player. That's why Cole Anthony is still so successful for this team. And so the Magic standing pat, it means that this season is what it is. And I've been saying that forever, but it is a still pretty hard reality to take, because what proof is there that this season won't repeat next year? This isn't the season we want. This isn't the team that we ultimately want. The Magic know they're going to need to add. And I appreciate what Jeff Weltman said to Jason Beatty of the Orlando Sentinel. The Magic didn't want to be drawn in any panic trades. They weren't about this year. They weren't just trying to do something to do something. If they were trying to get Kobe White and the Bulls said, give us 2 firsts and Anthony Black, the answer to that's no. If they talked to Collins to Utah Jazz and the Jazz said, give us 2 firsts for Colin Sexton, the answer is no. Keep those assets in reserve. Use them on draft night. Won't maybe have the same leverage, but use them on draft night to make something happen. I get that. A bad deal is still worse than no deal, and we don't have all the information. We don't know what was on the table. We don't even know who, or have any hint of who Jeff Weltman was pursuing. But it is abundantly clear, nonetheless, that this Magic team needs help. It is abundantly clear, nonetheless, that Orlando, as constructed, is not where they want to be, is not good enough to win home court advantage, probably and possibly to win a playoff series, and certainly not good enough to compete with the top teams in the Eastern Conference. That's where they want to be. That's where they want to grow. And yeah, I will concede injuries are part of this equation. The Magic are probably in a better spot, in a better standings position, if Paolo and Franz don't get hurt. But if Paolo and Franz don't get hurt, we don't learn 2 things. A, we don't learn how strong this team's culture really is and what it potentially can be. And 2, we don't learn how deep these flaws are embedded into the roster. We don't learn exactly what this team needs. And that's the mistake of standing pat. We know these answers. We'll talk about the game against the Nuggets here in a minute. But we know these answers. We know they can't shoot at all. Back-to-back, bad travel or not. We all know it. Everyone all knows it. And it was time to address it. If anything, find a way to address it in a small way to just tide you over to the end of the season. I'm not a fan of that idea, but this team can't function because they can't shoot. Plain and simple. The time to make deals, the time to adjust the roster is here. We've said it for the last few weeks. We've known it for the last few weeks. I'm sure Jeff Weltman understands it too. He has this summer to get it right. He has this summer to begin reshaping this roster. Because like he said during the offseason, continuity only works when you're winning. The Magic are not winning anymore. The Magic are not progressing anymore. And so it's time to break continuity, and it's time to add what this team needs. Personally, for me, I get it. There's a lot of guys being integrated back into the lineup. We haven't seen this team at full strength. We don't really know how good they can be. I get that concern. I get that patience. I get that hesitancy. But we also know exactly what this team needs, even at full strength. And there's no reason to delay for tomorrow what must be done today. But that's what the Magic did. And the Magic will have to ride with this group the rest of the way. We'll talk about what that means and what comes next for the Magic. Plus, begin breaking down the Magic's loss to the Denver Nuggets coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash in non-retirement accounts. That's more than 8 times the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 per month for 1 year from first match. Must keep the funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8 times the national average savings account interest rate claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18th, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. So what comes next then? What comes next? For the short term, and that's where I want to focus today. For the short term, this is the group. This is the team. With all its flaws, with all its successes, with all its strengths, this is the team. And let's put transactions to the side. Let's put anything else to the side. The Orlando Magic are betting on this group. Jeff Weltman is betting on this group. He is betting on the fact that injuries are the reason why the Magic are where they're at, why the Magic have struggled to piece together wins, why the Magic haven't won consecutive games in more than a month. And it's betting that this team will find its way once they're fully healthy, once Jalen Suggs returns, and once Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner find their rhythm. And honestly, I'll say this. I think it's a fair bet to make. We've only seen Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero on the floor for 96 minutes over 6 games. We have not seen them play together enough to draw any conclusions. And so I do get it. How good is this team really? We don't know. And so it really feels like this season is now about figuring that part out. Now, the Magic won't get a second season to figure this out. They have to make a move this offseason. They have to begin meaningfully addressing their issues, their their weaknesses now. They should have done it now. They have to do it in the offseason. But this is the group. So the hope is that with players starting to come back from injury, hopefully, after the All-Star break, Paolo and Franz will begin rebuilding their conditioning, getting back really into game shape and into game rhythm. And the Magic will do what they have always done under Jamal Mosley and outperform their regular season's record after the All-Star break. Give Jamal Mosley deserves his share of criticism for how much the Magic have struggled offensively. He has not done enough to make their jobs easier. He can't make shots for anybody, and the Magic are still getting good looks, but he can still do more to make their jobs easier. Then again, look at the roster, look at who's available, and ask yourself, who is Jamal Mosley supposed to put in? What rotations is he supposed to make that are different than what he's doing? The Magic don't have enough firepower, and this is the problem. This is ultimately the problem. The Magic are playing with one hand tied behind their back. Again, look no further than Thursday's 112-90 loss to the Nuggets. Granted, it's a difficult back-to-back, the third game in 4 nights. Traveling east back-to-back from the coast at Denver at altitude, this was a schedule loss from the beginning. This is, I think I marked 3 or 4 games at the start of the season that I thought were schedule losses. The Magic have won one of them already. They beat the New York Knicks on that second night of the back-to-back from after they lost to the Jazz. Did not have them winning that one. That was a stolen game. This game, the Magic looked as exhausted as you would expect. And once again, their weaknesses were just on full display. The Magic could not make a basket to save their lives. They shot in the game, the Magic shot 36.9% from the floor and 16.1% from 3. It is let me make sure I get my numbers right here. It was the 8th game this year where the Magic scored 90 points or fewer. They had only one such game last year. So that game in New York in March. They shot 16.1% from 3. The team has 6 games now shooting worse than 20% from 3. They only had one such game last year. Somehow the Magic's offense has indeed gotten worse. And again, part of it, yes, injuries, all that stuff. This is a problem. This is an issue. And it's not an issue that Jalen Suggs necessarily fixes. Jalen Suggs fixes the defense and the energy. So maybe that gives you a few more fast break points. Maybe that gets you a few easy baskets here or there. But it doesn't fix the offense. And the offense is only getting more heliocentric. These are the numbers that I've looked up. Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner are still very slowly returning. They did not play well. Neither of them played well against the Nuggets. It was their first back-to-back since returning. Paolo scored 18 points on 6 for 14 shooting. Franz Wagner had 14 on 6 for 17 shooting. Banchero has a career usage rate of 29.1%. He has a 33% usage rate. Since his return, he's got a 32.1% usage rate. These are superstar level usage rates. Essentially, 1 out of every 3 possessions with Paolo on the floor ends with him either taking a shot, taking a free throw, or turning the ball over. Franz Wagner, we've been screaming for him to get more shots. 24.5% usage rate. He's at 32% and at 33.7% since his return. These guys are carrying a heavy, heavy burden. This is the Magic offense. Is give the ball to their 2-star players, almost really stand out of the way and let them try and create. And it's not working. They've been brilliant. They're doing all they can. It's not working. And this is why a trade was necessary. Just to relieve that pressure, just to give them another option, just to try and open the floor up with some shooting. The Magic lost Thursday because of the fatigue. They would have lost this game regardless. End of a long road trip. It's a tough ask. I know they won there last year under very similar circumstances. It's a tough ask. But the Magic lost because they couldn't keep up with the three-point shooting. Denver made three straight threes with about 2 minutes left in the second quarter that extended their lead out to eventually 9 at halftime. The Magic come back in the third quarter. They come out sluggish. Denver makes, how many threes they make in that third quarter? They made 3 threes in the third quarter. Orlando doesn't make any. They're 12 for 19. Magic scored just 17 points. Nuggets score 33. Game is over. They're up 28 at one point in the third quarter. Game is over. The Magic don't have it. They don't have the horses or the offense to keep up in a situation like that. Not when they're out of rhythm like they were. And that's the heart of the problem. The Magic just don't have enough attackers, enough offensive diversity to get easy shots. And that's not going to change the rest of the season now. Not that one trade would fix everything. Ultimately, what fixes this is Paolo and Franz play better. And they're playing well, but not well enough. There is no margin for error. And that's the issue. The Nuggets work the Magic because they are ruthlessly efficient on offense. Between Nikola Jokic and Michael Porter Jr., even without Jamal Murray and Russell Westbrook, just think about all those offensive weapons. There's 4 like crazy good offensive weapons. They were missing 2 of them and still torched the Magic. Michael Porter was 11 for 16, 5 for 8 from 3 for 30 points. Nikola Jokic at 28, 10, 12, triple-double. I don't think he played in the fourth quarter. Just absolute domination. The Magic aren't even in the same league. They're not playing the same game, it feels like. And since Orlando hasn't been able to drag teams into the mud with them with consistency lately, they're getting beat. They're getting beat bad. And again, that's the problem. The Magic have to work with what they have. They don't have a choice. They made that choice. They decided to work with this group, to let this group prove they are enough. And the rest of this season is a last stand. They can't think of it as anything else. This is a last stand for them. The offense is going to stink. It's going to be bad. We have to accept that. The Magic didn't address it. They better in the offseason. So Orlando has to find another way. They have to find another way to win another way. And more importantly, they have to do it now. Why the next 11 games are the season for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Looking for tickets to your next big event? Whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. Their curated deals make it super simple to find great tickets at a great price. No more sifting through thousands of options. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. It was a true steal. The seat view feature is a game changer as well. Before you even hit buy, you can see exactly what your seat will look like in the venue, so it's reassuring to know what kind of ticket you're buying. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they will refund 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are at the turning point of the season. I know I previewed this a few times. It deserves mentioning again. Whether the Orlando Magic can salvage their season. Whether they can find some type of success starts Saturday night against the San Antonio Spurs. That's why we're not doing our traditional go through the box score. Wendell Carter, a nice game, 19 points. Everyone else kind of stunk. Sorry, that's just how we're going to do it today. The Magic season will be determined over the next 3 weeks, over the next 4 weeks, over the next 11 games. The Magic will play 10 of their next 11 games at the Kia Center. 8 of those 11 games will be against teams with records worse than 500. Then they take a very difficult 5-game road trip: Milwaukee, Houston, New Orleans, Minnesota, Cleveland, before they come home, play Houston, Washington. They're kind of a mixed bag the rest of the way. When we say the Magic have the third easiest remaining schedule in the league, when we say the Magic have still have an opportunity to bank up wins and build momentum for the rest of the season, this next month is that time. They got away with the bad January last year because they killed it in February. They're currently, 1-3 in February? This is the part of the season where the Magic have to deliver and have to perform. Saturday, February 8th, Saturday against San Antonio, a tough team, but under 500. Almost virtually the same record as the Magic. February 10th, first matchup with Atlanta. Critical matchup for Orlando, as they have yet to play the Hawks this season. Atlanta's going through a lot of change with their trade deadline stuff. And then Wednesday against Charlotte to enter the All-Star break. They come out of the All-Star break with a back-to-back at Atlanta and then home versus Memphis. Then they play Washington at home, Cleveland on TNT, Golden State on the 27th, and then the 2nd, 4th, and 6th, 2 games against Toronto and a game against Chicago. The goal over the next 11 games has to be to go 8-3 or 7-4. And we can't pick wins because this team is not good enough to do that. But the Magic have to bank their wins now. They have to dominate these next 11 games. As things stand, the Orlando Magic are still very much in the race for the 6th seed. Miami at 25-24 is 2 games ahead of Orlando. Again, Orlando's played 4 more games than the Heat somehow and have the same number of wins. The Magic have played 2 more games than the Pistons and have the same number of wins. The Magic have played 2 more games than the Hawks and have 2 more wins. So the Magic are truly ahead of Atlanta, but they are truly behind the Pistons and the Heat. Again, 1 game back of Detroit for 7th. Very important home game if they get to the 7-8 playing game. 2 games back of Miami for 6th in the division lead. 4 games back of Milwaukee for 5th. By the time the Magic get to the end of this 11-game stretch, they must be ahead of Miami. I'll say it. They need to make up these 2 games and pull ahead of Miami. So again, the schedule's going to toughen up after that. But you hope that you've won enough games, you gain confidence, and you're playing well enough, and Jalen Suggs is back, and all this stuff that the Magic are banking on to put them in playoff position. To be sure, whether I don't think I'll be eating my words earlier, but to be sure, the gravity of not making a deal at the deadline will be determined by how the Magic play in the next 11 games. You go 6-5, we're a playing team. You go 7-4, we're still in the fight. You go 8-3, the 6th seed is theirs. You go 9-2, the 6th seed is yours. And you might sneak back into the fight for 5th. That's what's on the line. Despite how much the Magic have struggled, their dream of being the 4th seed might be a little bit out of reach, but there is still so much to fight for. And that old truism is still there. You're never as good as you think you are on your best days, and you're never as bad as you think you are on your worst days. The Magic just need to find their middle again. And that's been the difficulty of the last month. The Magic haven't been able to find that middle. They just had bad days after bad days. And some of it is, yes, limitations of personnel. The shooting's not going to come around. It's not going to magically be better. There are going to be At best, mediocre. But there's no hiding now. There's no hiding from it. We know it. And the Magic have to be determined to make this homestand count, to make these next 11 games mean something. It's been rough. And again, we know what the deal is at this point. But this is the moment. This is the moment when we find out what this team is really made of. If this team really does have the will and the spirit that we saw in December, that we believe this team is made of. It may be small. Getting the 6th seed is not the dream that we all had at the start of the season. It shouldn't be. But right now, that's the fight the Magic have to get themselves back into. It starts Saturday. Forget this road trip. Forget everything else. The Magic put their faith in this group to get the job done. And failure to get the job done means it's time to it's not time to reset, but it's time to move forward. Getting the job done still means it's time to move forward. But the Magic have to make the most of what's left. There is no tanking. Stop that. Don't even utter the word. That's the last time we're going to say that word. This team is good enough to be a playoff team. We know they're good enough to be a playoff team. And now it's about being that playoff team. Despite their weaknesses, despite their flaws, despite their shortcomings, they can still get the job done. And if they can't, then it is almost certainly time to get better personnel in. And if they can't, standing pat at the trade deadline is going to be a massive mistake in this franchise's history. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. For the latest on you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the links to the podcast to your podcast enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if all that's not enough, you can also check me out on the Locked On Magic Daily newsletter, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. And start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. I hope to see some of you out at the Duvin Orlando Magic collab launch party. Welcome to the arena. They have some great gear. They sent me a few of them. They're already all the way on the other side of my couch, so I'm not going to get up and go get them. But check out Duvin's website. You can see the great drops. You can. I believe you can still pre-order. You do have to pick it up at the event. It starts at 4:00 at the Great Southern Box Company Food Hall on Orange Blossom Trail. I went to the event last year. It was a lot of fun. Great to connect with a lot of Magic fans. Obviously, a lot more excitement last year than there is this year, but always good to be back with Magic fans, hanging out with Magic fans. And so I hope to see some of you there. I will have Locked On Magic stickers if you want some of those. So I hope to see you all there as well. We will be back Saturday night, Sunday morning, to recap the Magic's game against the San Antonio Spurs. So until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.